Hello, Facebook Live. It's Marilyn Devonshire from transformationstm.com, and have another very interesting evening. On Saturday, I did a Facebook Live video following the Elizabeth Gilbert workshop. So I'd gone to her Big Magic workshop in London, and there was an exercise that we had to do where you got a piece of paper, you ripped it into three, you wrote your name and email address on a slip of paper, and then you found a stranger that you were attracted to. And we don't mean attracted to in terms of you fancy them, but there was just something about their energy that you liked, and you gave them a slip of paper. And so, you know, over the course of the afternoon, I collected a fair number of these. And the Facebook Live I did on Saturday was about approaching someone and who had just a wonderful smile, giving her a piece of paper. And she'd said to me, seen you around, I really wanted to give you a slip of paper, but then I looked at how popular you were, and I thought, in her words were, and I realized you don't effing need it. What are you going to do with another piece of paper? So I did a whole Facebook Live about that, in terms of people who often seem very capable also get overlooked because people assume that they don't need anything. So I'll put the link into that if you want to watch it. And I didn't know the person I was talking about. I then received an email today, really lovely email. And again, I didn't put two and two together. It was from a stranger at the workshop. Now, when I came back from the workshop, a friend had said to me, how was the workshop? And I started typing a response because it was in Messenger, and I kind of nearly said to her, it was good, met some really lovely people, really enjoyed Elizabeth Gilbert, and it was what I'm already doing and living. So it wasn't necessarily new stuff, it was more confirmation that Elizabeth Gilbert and I, let's say, have chosen the same path. But then I deleted all that because I thought it sounds really arrogant. So I just deleted that and said it was good, and that I left it there. I then received an email from this stranger today, and it's entitled Big Magic, which was the name of the workshop. I'm going to read it to you. So it says, "Hey Marilyn, it's Kristen here with the baseball cap from the Big Magic workshop. I think what drew me and all those other peeps who gave you their email address was that it's evident in your face that you have done the work and experienced transformation already. Sure, there are always more things to learn and improve, but it looks like you are happy with who you are. And in the extremely unlikely event that I am wrong, know that if you can radiate that kind of energy, you must at the very least be on the right path," smiley face. And I read that, and it summed up perfectly what I wanted to say to my friend, but just didn't have the time to get into a big debate to articulate it. And so I said, "Oh, that is so funny." I said, I started to write this email to a friend to kind of say that a lot of the stuff that we were doing, I've already done it. I live it, I breathe it. You know, I've been running my Magic and Gratitude group for coming up to 6 years now. And, you know, one of the practices Elizabeth Gilbert talked about, I started doing that when I was 7 years old, and have been an advocate for the dance break in terms of prescribing them to clients for the past 18 years. So in that respect, some people go, "Oh, wow, that's a brilliant idea." And I'm like, that's a very cool idea. And I've been doing it my whole life. So it was that kind of thing. But when I read this email, I thought she's put into words perfectly what I was wanting to articulate but couldn't. And we were then chatting, and she came up with this really great analogy. Because we were saying, you know, of course, as human beings, we're all on our path, and we're all on different journeys, we're all at different stages. And one of the things that she said if we think about going to Rome, she says, "I'm closer to Rome than you are." And what she meant by that was that her words were, she said, "I'm closer to Rome than you are," as an example, "because I've been walking longer than you have. But it doesn't mean I would look down on where you are and your journey, nor does it make me any better than you. It just means I've been walking the path longer." And I just thought that was such a wonderful analogy to describe spiritual evolution and describe the path and the journey that we're on. And I guess if you might want to use the word enlightenment, because when somebody is enlightened, it's almost like they're up in the gods and way above everything. And I think, you know, when we're talking about it today, that whole thing about where are you on your path, and you might have just started walking longer, because I was sat next to somebody at the beginning of the workshop, and they, you know, don't do much personal development. Somebody bought them the course as a gift. And so some of the exercises were, you know, for a lot of people in the room, very emotional. But I said to her, because we were doing an exercise and now writing a letter to fear, and mine was actually quite philosophical, and yeah, it was philosophical. I'll leave it there, and I might share some aspects of it with you. But she was like, oh my God, because hers was full of, you know, fear and anxiety and worry. And I said to her, look, understand that if I had written this letter 18 years ago, 19 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I said my letter would have been exactly the same as your letter. But the fact of the matter is, that was then, this is now. So I'm in a different place and space. But it was really quite interesting to have a complete stranger who's only seen me for a couple of minutes write that email and be so absolutely spot on with everything. But then it made me think about faces, because the line where she says, it's evident in your face that you've done the work and experienced transformation already. I was thinking it'll be really fun if you maybe just, you know, lined up some faces or looked at people's profile pictures and you try and guess what they've been through. Because another experience I had on Saturday, we had to write, I think it was a letter that we wrote to persistence, in terms of, you know, the things that we've been through and how persistence has maybe gotten us through those. And the woman I was partnering with was shocked. You could see every time I said something else, her eyebrows would go further and further and further and further up her forehead, and she was just like, whoa, because she couldn't believe that, you know, one person who looked, for all intents and purposes, very happy and very content could have been through any of that stuff, never mind just one or two bits of it. So it kind of made me laugh. And then I said to her, I said, look, I actually think that's a good thing that you wouldn't look at me and think I had been through those things, because I don't believe that we have to wear, you know, the experiences that we have through life like a sign on our forehead which says like abused or, you know, abandoned or whatever your thing might be. And so I say to her, I actually take that as a compliment that I don't look as though I've suffered all these things. And we had a bit of a laugh about that. But then when I read this email, so I thought actually it's very true. It'd be really interesting, you know, if people were to look at you, could they guess your life? Could they guess what you've been through? And actually, could they even guess what you do for a living? And there's a game I used to play when I was on the tube, where people be wearing their headsets. And I would get, I mean, I'd never find out, but I would guess what kind of music do I think they're playing. And sometimes I'd actually look at them and go, banker. That's banker with a B, by the way, banker, you know, office, librarian, cashier, and just, you know, have a little play at guessing where people were going on their way to work. Clearly I needed to pass the time. This was in the days where I worked in the city and had quite a long commute. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting. Could people look at you and figure out who you are? Could they guess what you've been through? Could they guess some of the challenges that you've had in life? And do you wear those on your face, or would it be a surprise and a shock to people? So it just kind of made me think. It just kind of made me, hi Andrew, wave. Yeah, it just kind of got me thinking. But it was really, I love synchronicity. I'm a big fan of synchronicity. So the fact that I did a Facebook Live about this person on Saturday, had no idea who they were. And then I did a Facebook post about them today, having received the email, because I just thought that is just beautiful. And then I was leaving tonight, so I walked out of St James's Church, and for those of you who have been there, there's a bit of a courtyard, and as I was walking out the building, somebody went, Marilyn, and I looked round and it was the same woman. And again, when I just saw her, she was still wearing a baseball cap, but I didn't immediately put two and two together and think, oh my God, it's the same person. It wasn't until we got into conversations like, oh my God, it's you. And so I'm a fan of synchronicity. So for me to do the Facebook Live about her, not knowing who she was, and then receive the email out of the blue, still not really knowing who she was, and then meeting her again today and her calling my name and still not really clocking who she was. I love synchronicity. I really love synchronicity. So I think there's something, you know, something in this to be explored. Number one, about the assumptions and looking at people and making an assumption about what they do and don't need. And what I was talking about on Saturday was assuming that people don't need your help and don't need your support because they appear to be capable and doing okay. And oftentimes that's not the case. because I think everybody can do with a helping hand and some support every once in a while, if not all the time. And so the assumptions we make was an interesting kind of discussion, and many people had said, both on the video that I'd done and also sent messages saying that's exactly the experience that I've had. And one person was saying that they don't get invited out because people go, oh, she's always busy, and don't even bother to invite you. And another lovely analogy that Chrissy had today was, she said it's like the model syndrome. And when I was at college, I had a really good friend. We're still friends to this day. We're actually long overdue a night out. And she is beautiful. I mean, her skin is like chocolate. Her hair is like silk. She had an hourglass figure and was just had gorgeous manners. I don't think she ever went to finishing school, but you would imagine she went to finishing school. The funny thing was, none of the guys ever spoke to her. She went through 2 years of college thinking that nobody liked her, and it just happened to come up in conversation one day. Now, I used to get a lot of people talking to me because I was friends with her, and so a lot of the guys would talk to me. They're not interested in talking to me, they just want to know about her. And so I would, sometimes pass over the number, or I'd say, oh, so and so wanted to talk to you, or they said this and they said that. But that's still not the same as somebody actually making an approach, coming up to you, having a conversation. And so I was shocked to find when we were actually, I don't know, can't even remember now, because I was like 18 at the time, 16, 17, whatever it was. But I remember it coming up, and she'd said this thing about, nobody ever finding her interesting. And I was like, are you kidding me? And what Christy and I were talking about today was the model syndrome, and I have seen it in interviews as well. And it was actually, I think Naomi Campbell put it beautifully. I mean, the take with Naomi Campbell was slightly different. I think she's been interviewed by Parkinson. In terms of the brain, it's like a spider's web. So I'm talking about this, and then it's like, okay, Naomi. But it kind of speaks to the same point, if you're wondering how we've gotten to Naomi Campbell and Parkinson. But Parkinson had said to Naomi, do you find it difficult to get dates? I guess men are intimidated by you. And that's basically what Christy and I were talking about today, and the fact that somebody who's a model, they are so beautiful and so just seemingly perfect, like my friend at college, that men won't even want to approach them, and women might feel intimidated to be around them. And with the Naomi Campbell thing, her answer was priceless. She says, if a man is intimidated by me, he's not the kind of man I want to be dating, which I don't know if that's what Parkinson was expecting. So that's a whole different conversation in terms of her response, but it's the same principle. But she's so gorgeous and just, up on a pedestal that people will go, oh, there's no point even going there. So yeah, it was just plenty of food for thought. But the fact that this, she's popped up 3 times now, it's just like, okay, it's got my attention. It's kind of made me really, give me several things to think about. But yeah, so I would definitely say, in summary, don't assume that people don't need support, that they don't need a few kind words, that they don't require any compliments or any positive feedback. Because oftentimes, if everybody had the same thought, rather than coming home with a stash of these bits of paper on Saturday, I was saying to her, I probably could have come home like Billy No Mates, going, oh well, I didn't impact anyone today, which would not be the case. Everybody just would have thought, oh, well, she seems very popular, I'll give it to someone else. So I'd say don't make assumptions. If a compliment is to be paid, pay it regardless. And I would definitely say maybe have a little bit of fun. Next time you're with a group of people, if they're up for it and willing, maybe play the game of what does their face, what does their energy, what does their aura say to you? And just see if you guess right, because she was 100, even using the word trans, she spelled it in the traditional spelling, transformation, but for those of you who know, my thing is transformation. So she was absolutely spot on with everything that she said, and she doesn't even know me. And she works in a bank, so it's not even like she's in the energetic spiritual field. So yeah, it might be a fun game to play. Maybe you might want to take it a step further, get people to, put a picture in the timeline. Actually, that might be a bit too personal. Maybe play it in Messenger, but get people to send a photo and just write a little summary. What do you see within them? What do you think their life path has been like, and what has been their journey? Nathan says synchronicity. Absolutely, massive synchronicity. It's definitely got my attention today. I haven't seen Naomi's comment, but Andrew says great comment, Naomi. So Naomi, whatever you said, great comment. It's not showing here at the moment. And Andrew says confidence is key. And I think what really shocks people when I say, look, I was quiet and shy, lacking in confidence, very low self-esteem, right up until the age of 32 years old, so well into adulthood. People can barely believe it. And when I say I was so quiet and shy, I found it difficult to even talk to my own family. People are like, really? And I always say, look, the problem now isn't getting me to talk. The problem is getting me to shut up, as you'll know if you've watched my Facebook lives. So yeah, a lot. Transformation. And that's why it's my word. That's why it's the word I chose 18 years ago to encompass what I do. And it's why it still appears on all of my banners. It's kind of behind me here in terms of the card and the water drop. The water drop was to signify, you know, sometimes you can just come into people's lives and just, you know, give a bit of input. And my intention was that will continue to ripple out into people's lives. And I think the record so far is someone emailing me 10 years after we did a one-day breakthrough session. And their words were the changes and the things that we put into practice that day are still rippling throughout my life. And I've always been meaning to email you and tell you 10 years is a long time, but that was my intention, that we do the work once and it would ripple out into your life forever. So that, you know, that has been the case thus far, which is really great. But yeah, so interesting. So you might want to play the perception game. You might want to, you know, go look at, if people are willing, look at their profiles, just have a bit of fun and just say, what do you think you've been through? You might even just choose things. What do you think is the biggest challenge they've faced in their life? Where would you say they are on their spiritual path? And if you had to choose a word which summed them up, what word would you choose? There you go. That'll be an easy way to do it. But yeah, could be fun, could be a bit of a laugh. Oh, right. Sorry. Thanks, Andrew. Sorry. He says, oh, you're referring to Naomi Campbell. Got you. Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So that was it, really. That was my thought for this evening as I came home, having met her again, and you know, 3 times is a charm. So I'm going to mull this one over some more because I know there's kind of more to be. Oh, don't worry, I won't bore you with it. But you know, there's definitely some gems in here and some bits I might share for Wisdom Wednesday in the membership group, because there's a few things that have come to mind from that. And yeah, and Elizabeth Gilbert tonight was good. It was as I suspected, it was going to be more about her life. And it's one of the things that I often teach when I teach presentation skills and public speaking skills. And I always say to people, be okay not to know. And Elizabeth Gilbert said several times today, because people were asking questions about how do you find balance and how do you keep your heart open when you've been hurt and da-da-da. And a number of occasions she says, I don't know, haven't managed to do it myself, haven't achieved it myself. And so if I were choosing a word for Elizabeth, I would say authenticity, and that she's kind of open. And there's no fancy schmancy airs and graces and trying to make up an answer that sounds good. She's like, I don't know, but good luck. So yeah, it's interesting. It was great fun. Yeah, but that's it. So, you know, hope you've all had a brilliant weekend. Wishing you a fabulous week. Thank you for the love hearts and the thumbs up, very much appreciated. And I'm now going to go and have a very, 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 very late dinner and ponder this thing called life, and actually breathe a sigh of relief that my traumas and all of my very dark past apparently is not showing on my face and is not reflected in my aura. So for that, I am very grateful, and I've just got to give a big thumbs up to personal development, because of course I owe it all to that. And being able to kind of clean out your own mind, which is a very, very, very useful skill to have. So wishing you all a fabulous morning, afternoon or evening, depending on where in the world you are and what time of day you're watching this live or the replay. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the comments and questions, and I'll catch you all later. Bye bye.